This is DRF, Race of the Day.
The big race on Saturday at Del Mar, in fact, the big race of summer in California, is the Grade 1 $1 million TVG Pacific Classic, a 1.25 miles on the main track, and it's race number 10 on Saturday. 5 graded stakes races on the Saturday card. And the significance of this year's Pacific Classic is that less than 3 months from now, the Breeders' Cup Classic will be run over the very same track. And the winner of the Pacific Classic on Saturday receives a fees-paid berth into the Breeders' Cup Classic. So we're going to be talking about the Pacific Classic and the ramifications as we lead into fall and get closer and closer to the Breeders' Cup. As for the Pacific Classic, favorites have won this race 6 of the last 8 years. It always helps to have a good record over the course. Del Mar can be a horse-for-course racetrack, but experience over the Del Mar surface is not necessary. There have been plenty of shippers come into Del Mar and run well over the surface. And I bring it up because Express Train, who we'll talk about in a minute, is a bona fide horse for course at Del Mar. He's 3 for 4 with the second, whereas Dr. Post has never raced in California, and he'll be making his first start at Del Mar. So at any rate, it's a field of 9 in the Pacific Classic. No 3-year-olds entered the field this year, which is unfortunate because it would have been interesting to see how Essential Quality and or Hot Rod Charlie stacked up against this field of 9. And another question we can probably ask is, are the East Coast handicap horses better than the West Coast? They probably are, but we're going to find out for sure in early November, November 6th, when the Breeders' Cup Classic is run over this track. Okay, there's the field of 9 for the Pacific Classic this year. And the favorite is number 5, Express Train at 3-1. Royal Ship at 7-2, and Dr. Post at 4-1. So we'll be talking about these horses in just a minute. I just want to talk briefly about the historical significance of the Pacific Classic. This race has been won by superstars like Gentleman, Lava Man, Bertrando. Derby winners have won the Pacific Classic, including California Chrome and Maximum Security. 6 years ago, the Philly Beholder uncorked one of the most dazzling performances in Pacific Classic history when she demolished the boys in the Pacific Classic. But the tone for the Pacific Classic was really set way back in 1991, the very first year the Pacific Classic was run, and the 3-year-old Best Pal took on older horses in the 1991 Pacific Classic. Let's go back in time and take a look at the stretch run from the 1991 Pacific Classic. That's Twilight Agenda on the lead. That's who I bet on. It turned out to be a good selection, but second best because Twilight Agenda, he got a little bit late in deep stretch, and Best Pal, the 3-year-old owned by John Mabie's Golden Eagle Farm, ran right past under Pat Valenzuela to win the inaugural running of the Pacific Classic more than 30 years ago, exactly 30 years ago, as a matter of fact. Okay, there have been a lot of good horses that have crossed the wire first in the Pacific Classic, and some forgettable ones as well. Student Council, Dolahan, some modest horses have won the Pacific Classic. But we are focused on the 2021 Pacific Classic, and let's talk about the field. There were expected to be 8 runners in the Pacific Classic, but the surprise entrant at the last minute is number 7, Independence Hall. And he's relevant because he is quick enough to set the pace if they choose. I got the feeling that maybe some of the folks in his camp would have preferred to run in the Charlestown Classic next weekend as opposed to a 1.25 miles. But Independence Hall is in the race. He's training well. He is adding blinkers, and he's fast enough to make the lead if Florent Giroux so chooses. And why not? Speed is always powerful, and maybe Independence Hall can steal it. I doubt it. I suspect he's not a 1.25 miles horse, and he's also coming into the race off a 127-day layoff. So Independence Hall, he is relevant to the discussion of this race because he is quick enough to make the lead, and that would be just fine for number 5, Express Train, who should get a good trip sitting second. We'll talk more about Express Train in just a minute. But first, let's talk about a couple of the horses that are kind of on the front. By the way, as far as Independence Hall's odds, I think 5-1 is kind of a ludicrous price. I could be wrong, but I expect his odds to drift up considerably. I don't think Independence Hall will be anywhere close to 5-1. As for number 2, Tis a Magician, he also is listed at 5-1, and he's shortening up from a win in a 1.5 mile dirt race, the Grade 3 Cougar, on July 18th at Del Mar. And let's roll the tape on the Cougar. Watch Tis a Magician on the outside run past, or on the inside, excuse me, take the lead, and he will hold off or run away from, I guess I should say, Cupid's Claws. Tis a Magician and Cupid's Claws 1-2 across the wire in the 1.5 mile Cougar. And this was a Grade 3 race, and it certainly does not compare to the Grade 1, Grade 2 caliber races in which the likes of Express Train and Royal Ship have been running. But the 1.5 mile Cougar has actually produced legitimate contenders for the Pacific Classic. Sometimes these horses get in form. They're shortening from 1.5 miles to 1.25 miles. And if the others in the field come up short, you know that Tis a Magician has a foundation, having won going 1.5 miles last time out. And the same actually applies to Cupid's Claws, who was claimed for $50,000 last fall and has gone on to more than double his claim price and win a graded stake. He won the Tokyo City last year at Santa Anita. Okay, those are a couple of the fringe players. As far as the shipper goes, trainer Todd Pletcher, as far as I could tell, has never started a horse at the summer meet at Del Mar, at least back through 1996. But he is shipping Dr. Post out to California for the Pacific Classic. He actually arrived early this week and was going to take Wednesday off and then train on Thursday, Friday. Dr. Post is kind of an interesting horse because last year at age 3, he was just under the top echelon of the 3-year-olds in the country. He finished 2nd in the Belmont, 3rd in the Haskell, but he has come back this year as an improved older horse. He has a couple of Grade 3 wins, and he'll be jumping up in class to a Grade 1 on Saturday. But Dr. Post, sired by Quality Road, and I think it's significant that Pletcher is following a similar pattern this year that he did in 2019 when he sent Vino Rosso to Santa Anita to win a Grade 1 early in the year, and 5 months later sent Vino Rosso back to Santa Anita, where he won the Breeders' Cup Classic. Pletcher is not comparing Dr. Post to Vino Rosso, nor am I, but the pattern is similar. Pletcher shipping a horse across the country to run in the Pacific Classic, and who knows if Dr. Post is good enough. Maybe he is. His most recent start was in a Grade 3 at Monmouth. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stretch run of the Grade 3 Monmouth Cup, and this was Dr. Post's first start with blinkers. The blinkers were to keep him more focused. It certainly was not to add speed because he's not a quick horse. Dr. Post is not. But the blinkers did keep him a little bit more focused early, and he ran away from the field to win by about a length and a half or so. A good solid win over a modest field. This is a horse that's getting better. He's not there yet. At least I don't think he is. He's earned a 101 Beyer speed figure last time out, facing significantly tougher company Saturday in the Breeders' in the Pacific Classic. But the horses that are most likely to win the Pacific Classic are coming out of the San Diego. And that was July 17th at Del Mar, a race in which Express Train, Tripoli, and Royal Ship finished 1, 2, 3. Let's take a look at the stretch run of the San Diego. Express Train got a much better trip in the San Diego. He actually broke running, was forwardly placed, took the lead into the lane, and on the far outside is Tripoli, and stuck down inside in the red cap is poor Royal Ship, who had to wait for room. But Express Train showed some tenacity in the lane. He refused to let Royal Ship go by on the inside, and when Tripoli came to him on the outside, Express Train dug in and held him off as well. Express Train's 4 starts at Del Mar include 3 wins and a second. He has tactical speed to be forwardly placed right behind potential pace setter Independence Hall and or Tis a Magician. He will get first run. Express Train has started twice at 1.25 miles, and he ran well both times. His third in the Gold Cup was a much better than looked third. He was forced wide every step of the way. and finished behind Royal Ship. And he previously had the lead at the 8th pole in the Santa Anita handicap and got worn down by it since sidelined Idle. But Express Train loves the track. I believe he can stay a 1.25 miles. He has a forwardly placed running style, and he figures for a super trip sitting just off the pace. And if nobody wants it, Juan Hernandez can go right on with it. I like Express Train. He's the favorite, but he's a high odds favorite at odds of 3-1. If he starts at 3-1, he will be the highest odds favorite in Pacific Classic history. I expect the Pacific Classic to be won by John Sheriff's Train, Express Train under Juan Hernandez. And if you can get 3-1 on Express Train, head to the window. Express Train to win the Pacific Classic Saturday at Del Mar.